Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, Vandiazo back at another Carpe Banger deck profile. So if you guys enjoyed them, like, comment, subscribe, and search story. This time we're covering set 13, Lianorn Vivace, Lianorn Vivace, as I've been told. I'm going to call it Vivace anyway, because Vivace sounds smoother in my mind, deck profile. So, there's actually two Lianorn decks with Vivace in them. One is this one that actually focuses on Vivace, and the other is, let's just say triple Leonor and leave it at that. But yeah, so this deck is interesting because I pretty much built most of this deck before Vivace came out in preparation for Vivace, and then the second Vivace did come out, I pretty much just shoved her in, and quite literally the deck didn't really change much outside of like it's also some great new grade 1 support card. So all around the deck is interesting. It pretty much just does what Leonor normally does, but much more bigger and more terrifying numbers on the van. So let's go ahead and start. So let's see what we got. First up today, we have our starter announcing Window Spring Codify. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, honor roll upon for a second draw card. Standard strategy plus just a free draw if you win second. None of the ride land really requires Corfy, so you can make this anything you want, but I choose to keep it as Corfy because she fits the theme and it's nice to have. Then we have Source Dragon, Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor, Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, or Over Trigger. Over Trigger, you may only remove one Over Trigger from your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your units against plus 1 for the turn, and if you voted during draw check, activate its additional effect. Would you get to draw a card, choose one of your units against plus 1 for the turn, or if Romo gets plus 10, and if your damage on the stand of cards of your opponent is more, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. All around, pretty solid effect. Free 1 million in draw regardless if you damage check it or drive check it, and then if you drove check it, you get a total of 2 draws. Someone gets a crit, probably the thing you gave the million to, unless it was PG'd, or unless your Vanguard's going through, then you give it to the Vanguard, but then you also give 10k to the front row on top of that, so you get a front trigger, and you also get a technical heal trigger out of it. This thing is straight up an everything bagel, and I love it. It's such an amazing trigger, and I love abusing the hell out of this card, so one of Bless Favor, you can use other cards if you want to for the over, such as Valna or Asphoria, but I like the everything bagel, because Bless Favor is my favorite, and I love pulling this off and getting all the effects off as well. Let me move on to our normal triggers. Run 2 copies of both Frenzied Harris and Serene Maiden Lena. Both of them are draws and fronts respectively. They both have the same skill though in base power, 4k power, and continuous guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard degrades through the grades, 5k shield. So Frenzied Harris is a 20k shield and Lena's a 10k shield when the opponent's at grade 3. All around pretty solid because you do want the front triggers for a little bit of push, especially with Vivace standing the front row. You might want to make sure that you see fronts to at least increase the front row's power just a little bit so they're not shut down by triggers. But you also want to use the draws to help increase hand. I swear there are more than 2 Lenas in this deck. Like, every single time I play this deck, I will see both Lenas, one by at least trigger, and the other one I'll either draw into normally, or I will actively, like, damage check it. So, I don't know why I see both Lenas consistently, but I do, and I swear this deck has more than 2 Lenas, but I can't prove it. So, yeah, 2 of Lena, 2 of Frenzied Harris. Then we have 7 crits, 3 copies of Melodone Pomoria, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. This can really be any crit you want it to be. I just keep it as Melodia because it fits the theme, and it's so cute. It's like a little puffball that's playing, not the harmonica, kind of like an accordion piccolo, something along those lines. And then we have, obviously, 4 copies of Aspiring Maiden Alana, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power. Auto rearguard, exam about a boost. Put this unit to soul, choose a mute, it gets for 2k for the turn. Okay, this deck has less of a problem with soul because, like, most of the time you're not actually going to stay on OG Leonorn. You're most of the time just going to go to Vivace, but you know, worst case scenario, if you spend all your soul in one go because maybe everything went horribly wrong and you kind of rushed early and didn't see any of your soul chargers, that is what Alana is for, to send itself to soul and give you 2k. Now, again, you can really make this any crit you want. If you want to make this a 5k crit for that benefit, you can. But I like to run Alana because, like I said, there are occasions where you might get bored nuking. You might have to make a board out of nowhere and you might not hit your soul charges. That's what Alana is for, to make sure you don't will run into soul problems. So 4 of Alana, very solid. And we have a total of 7 crits for that pressure with triple drive, big numbers with Van, etc. Then we have 4 heals and Flowery Toner, as I like to call Elegy Pixie, because for those of you that don't know, when I first put this heal trigger into tabletop until like set 7, I think, I didn't realize that I had kept the name Elegy Pixie, and because like it looks like an LG Pixie to me, or at least that's what I would call it myself if I were to have named the card. I literally kept it as that until I like did the deck profile, and I just was like, oh my god, his name isn't LG Pixie, it's Flowery Tone, and I like still took a long time to change it to Flowery Tone. So yeah, anyways, good Zo boost, 15k shield, 5k power. It's just a standard heal, and without it. I don't really like the effect heals too much. I feel like the effect heals are too situational, being a constant 10k shield unless in specific situations where they then become a 25k shield. I would much rather have a consistent 15 over the fluctuating 10 to 25, but if you want to run the effect heals, go ahead, but like I said, I prefer the regular ones. Then we move on to our normal units. First, we run 3 copies of Rhythm of Joy Atlantis, our new grade 1 with boost 5k shield, aka base. Really cool art, and she is one of the few cards that I can actually crop the background around with really well without having to do some extra tryhard BS. So there's that. Anyways, 2 skills, continues rearguard during your turn. If you have Vanguard Leanorn's Carnage, she's a 10k base, which is nice. And then if your Vanguard is in the unit's undressed state, it gets 5k instead of 2k. So all around pretty solid. She's either she's guaranteed a 10k base the second you hit grade 3, but past that she ended up being a 15k base, which is nice to have. Then we have auto rearguard at the end of your turn. If your Vanguard is boosted a total 3 or more times this turn, by retiring her, you can draw a card, and if your damage zone has no face of cards in, you get to countercharge 1. All around pretty solid because I like this more than I like the Leonor Maskell specific one, because you always had to be on mask for that skill, and if you didn't, well, sucks for you, and you also have to Soul Blast for it. Well, now you don't have to Soul Blast for it, you get a draw anyways, and then getting the counter charge kind of like 50-50, but the deck doesn't eat up too much CB till the very last turn, so being able to basically only counter charge when you really need to is pretty solid. So Atlantis is a very good grade 1, I like her skill, free draw, free CC, and is a nice 15k, all around pretty solid, so 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of our promo, who I was so happy to know came into English. Forest Protecting Hunter Prosper. Great on boost, Vivace shield, AK base. Auto when placed on rearguard circle by a card ability, you may still charge 1. Arm pretty solid because there are 2 units in this deck that placed by card's ability. One is Lianorn and one is Diantha. Typically you play them both at the same time, so being able to have 2 ways to get a soul charge is nice. And it's on a mandatory soul charge either, so you lessen the chance of you decking out and you only really soul charge if you need to. And then auto rearguard when it boost. If you have Vanguard Lianorn's card name, choose a unit in the same column as a unit and it gets plus 5k power for the turn. I love this effect because you can pick itself, you can pick the unit in front of it, and it doesn't matter what it boosts. Meaning when you swing with Vivace, this thing is procking off twice, meaning the thing in the same column as it is probably getting plus 10, which means the Vanguard in total got plus 10. So on top of like whatever other pluses it had. So 4 of Prosper, very solid grade 1. Gets free soul charge and basically makes your boosting when you're hard rushing your opponent on either Vivace or regular Leonor really big. 4 of, amazing grade 1. I love his skill and I love his art because he has also a bow and arrow. And for those of you that don't know, bow and arrows are my favorite weapon, or one of my favorite weapons. And we have 4 copies of Performing Petal Diantha. I don't know why every time I think of Diantha, I just imagine her having a sword in hand. Anyways, grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto when she's placed on rearguard circle from the hand. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard, counter boss 1 to choose a grade 3 list card from your drop zone, call it to rearguard. This is amazing. Granted, she can't proc off herself. She can call herself, she just can't proc off herself. But you can call her via Lianorn, use her skill to then call out Prosper, get a soul charge, use her skill to call another copy for the second skill, call it Atlantis, call out literally anything else from the deck. She just gets you rear guards for a simple CB, and I love that. And then her other effect is continues rear guard during your turn. If you have 2 or more back row grade 1 or less rear guards, she gets plus 5k on top of that. All around pretty solid because she also counts herself for that skill, meaning all you have to do is get 1 more grade 1 in the background. Typically in this deck, your ride deck does that for you. So being a 13k base is pretty simple. All around, she's a nice card. She has a nice base power of 13k, more or less. And again, she gets you a rear guard simply by being placed and having a CB, which thanks to Atlantis isn't that hard to keep up with. So 4 of Diantha, very solid grade 1, and I love using her. Then we have 4 copies of my favorite grade 1 in this deck personally, that is Marching Debut Pirete. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base, continues rear guard during your turn. If you have 3 or more grade 1 less rear guard, she gets 5k power. Cool. 13k base. It's simple, and unlike the other one, she's the only one that doesn't have 2 skills. Here is why I like Pirete though. She is the one that you can afford to call down at the earliest possible moment and not suffer from it. Here's why. If you call down Diantha early, you lose out on this ability, so you can't even use the skill to call stuff back. You can call Prosper early, but A, you're probably not proccing off card abilities, and B, you are giving them the chance to kill this thing before it goes off with that effect. And then as for Atlantis over here, again, you're just giving them the chance to kill it before its effect goes off. However, with Pirete, if you rush early, you're probably going to have a 13k base with the unit who doesn't have a second skill that can be counted as wasted and is revivable via this thing and or other abilities, and basically makes it good. For Pirete, I just love throwing her down for a rush. Like, you don't have to be cautious about her. The second you get the chance, just call her down and start rushing your opponent and see what the hell happens. For Pirete, just very solid grade 1. She has the same job as everyone else here, she just does the rush a bit better. Then we have 4 copies of Custodial Dragon, grade 1 boost, 0 sources K base, continues Sentinel, make 4 cents in deck, on this on guard circle, choose 1 mutes, they cannot be hit till in battle, and if your hand is 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand, discard it, standard PG. None just specified basically means if this and only one other card is in your hand when you place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard one, which is great, because that means you can aggressive as you want in the early game, triple Pirete play, cough, cough, and then when your opponent counterattacks you because of that, throw down Custodial Dragon, and boom, you're safe. All around, Custodial Dragon is a very solid PG. You can run Planet Prevent Dragon because they have the exact same skill, but I'd rather run Custodial Dragon because it came out close to the time of Leonor's release. So yeah, 4 Custodial Dragon. Very nice PG, helps out in the early rush, and when you're spamming Pirates like I do, yeah, you're going to want a PG. And then we have our last grade 1, one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck of Budding of Pleasant Sounds, Godacia. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, AK base, auto, which is rolled upon by Brilliant Tomb Rectina. You may call her to rearguard circle. It literally took until the match against Tamari, where Ura literally said that she doesn't have to call Gracia, that it took me to realize that Gracia's skill is actually a may clause and not a mandatory clause, which is nice. That means, you know, if your opponent's going to kill it and you know it's just going to be better to have it in soul for soul fodder, you can just keep it in there. But I mean, most of the time you're going to call it to back row center because the second ability is continuous rearguard during the battle boost to Vanguard plus 5k power. That's a 13k booster. On the turn you call this thing, since you rode upon it with Rectina, that's a 23k swing. And I always love swings like that because that means when you're swinging into the opponent, if they guard the Vanguard, they have to guard with a total shield of 25,000, assuming that they're at grade 2, to make it a no pass. Or if they're at grade 1, my personal favorite of the two, they have to drop a 20k just for a 1 to pass. So basically, granted, most of the time you don't guard the grade 2 Vanguard unless like your opponent is, unless you know your opponent's going to end up like having some big numbers come down for it. But yeah, Gracia is nice to have for that little guarantee that they're going to take it. So one of Gracia in the ride deck, none in the main deck, just a nice booster. She doesn't really do anything outside of boosting the Vanguard, but hey, it's a free boost. Then we have our grade 2s. We run no main deck grade 2s. We only run the one ride deck grade 2, and that's Brilliant Tomb Rectina. Grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base, auto, which is rolled upon by Lianorn, its card name. It could be Maskez if you found a way to do that. It could also be either the two regular Lianorns, or it could be Vivace if you found a way to do that, but you're not going to. But hey, being able to Soul Blast 1 and choose a grade 1 from your drop zone and call it to rearguard is pretty solid, because if your opponent killed Gracia, or you just kept Gracia in Soul, and then you Soul Blast out Gracia to call Gracia, you can do that. You get rearguards, Pirete, Diantha, who won't proc off her skill, but 13k base, Prosper, who will just make it free, basically, Atlantis, literally, like, the possibilities are endless with Rectina, and then continues rear guard, the ability you don't have to worry about. If your back row is 3 or more rear guards, it gets a boost. Okay, this ability will never go off, because you're not meant to call this to rear guard. The only way to call this to rear guard is to blast it out via Lianorn, or by its own self, and then just call it back with Diantha. But the only reason you would do that, instead of calling literally anything else, is if the entire game you've only seen triggers, and the only things that you have not seen that are not triggers are already on board, to the point where Diantha calling this thing is really your only option. So one of Rectina in the ride deck, you're never going to use its second skill, but if you have to, there you go. And being able to call back a grade 1 from drop, sometimes use it, sometimes you don't, but the important part is she A, triggers off this thing's ability, and B, worst case scenario, if you're playing against a nuke deck and you went first, or sorry, you went second, you can at least call stuff back easier. So one of Rectina in the ride deck. Then move on to our grade 3s. First, we run 2 copies of Happy and Dreaming Festa. I love using this card. I literally tried to fight every single way to see if I could keep this in the deck when I shoved in Vivace, and thankfully I did. Grade 3 normal order. Play it by card bossing 1. If you have a Vanguard Leonor's card name, check top 7. Choose up to 2 grade 2 or less unit, grade 1 or less unit cards from them. Call into rear guard and shuffle the deck. It's 2 grade 1 rear guards. Granted, again, it won't proc off Diantha, sadly, but I mean, 2 13k bases. Pretty much regardless of what this calls, you're technically getting a 13k booster out of this, most likely. Unless it's Atlantis, then you're either getting a 10k or a 15k. Like, all around, the order is pretty nice. It gets you rear guards, and that's kind of the point. Like, worst case scenario, if your board got nuked, you call with this, or you just have a very bad board, or if your board is doing well and you're not playing against a rear guard nuke deck, this is just PG fodder and or discard fodder for ride deck at its finest. 2 of Happy Jimmy Festa. Either get you rear guards or act as discard fodder. What's not to like about it? And then we have 4 copies of Resonance Dragon. Grade 3, Twin Giant Persona at 13k base. And I love that this thing is so much more broken in this deck than it was in the other, like, before Vivace. So it continues rear guard. If your units have been boosted a total of 3 more times this turn, it gets plus 5k power. Cool. So sadly, unlike before, unless like you're playing this when you're on regular Lianorn, you're not going to be able to get that 5k on his first string, keyword being first swing. And then the auto rearguard skill. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked into a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard Lianorn's card name and your unit's boosted a total of 5 or more times this turn, counter boss 1, yeet him into the soul and choose one of your rearguards and stand it. Here's what I love about this. With how Vivace's skill works, and you boost with everything, if for some ungodly reason you chose not to swing with the rear guards first, Vivace literally just triggers Resonance Dragon's full effect on its own because it boosts with 5 units. Pretty solid, especially when you consider the fact that, you swing with your front row rear guards first, then you swing with Vanguard, so that's 3, and you stand your board, and then, you boost with all of them. Then Leonor Vivace basically stands at the front row, and then you swing with Resonant Dragon, who thankfully doesn't have to be boosted for that second effect, and then, you get a total of 7 attacks in a turn. We went from Leonor having 3 base attacks with a very big Vanguard to having a very big Vanguard with 4 attacks. Then we went from that to having a big Vanguard with 5 5 attacks, and then we went from that to having a really big Vanguard with 7 attacks. So 4 Resonance Dragon, very solid. Stands rear guards for multi-attack, gets us soul, gets numbers, and is proccable on either of the 2 Lianorns. 4 of, and this thing is just amazing to pull off when you're on Vivace. Then we have our OG Leonor, because I plan to show Vivace at the end. One of in the red deck, none in the main deck of Grand March of Full Bloom Lianorn. Grade 3 200 Persona, 13k base. Act Vanguard, circle once per turn. By counterblasting 1, you get to draw a card, choose a card from your hand, and call it to rear guard or discard it. So, it's pretty nice because it basically is CB1 and get a free rear guard, which is nice to have. Like, it pretty much replaces the card. So, typically this is where you call Diantha and use a 2 CB at once to get an extra rear guard out of this. But it is what it is. Sometimes you call Pirete, sometimes you call Hunter just to get the soul charge. Sometimes you call Atlantis. Like, you really only either do one of these two just to proc off combos, but still. And then the other effect is Auto Vanguard when she attacks into anything, regardless of the grade of it, by soul blasting 1 and ditching 1. That's tend to what causes me the problems at the start, because I'm rushing early. I tend to not have any good cards, so I either have to ditch a Resonance, a Persona Ride, a Vivace, or a PG. I have ditched PGs before, and I don't regret those decisions. And then you boost this unit with all your standing back row units with boost, and then if this unit is boosted 3 or more times, this unit gets +1 drive to the battle, and at the end of that battle, choose 2 of your back row rear guards and stand them. All around pretty solid, because it allows you to stand in the back row, meaning you can basically make your front or rear guards bigger swing, or like keep them as the same swingers, but then still have Lianorn be at least a 43k column beat stick, which is nice to have. And to have triple drive on top of that, it's pretty like a very solid force. And you obviously want to run at least 1 Persona Ride in case you can't get to Vivace and you just want big numbers for Resonance Abuse. So yeah, one of in the ride deck of Lianorn, one in the main deck. She's nice to have. She gets us technical free rear guards, and she gets us triple drive and like big ass numbers. What's not to like about it? Then we have 4 copies of our last card in the deck, Match Fleur, Leonor Vivace, or it would be Leonor Vivace, as I've been told. Again, I really prefer like Leonor Vivace, because that just sounds so much smoother to me. Anyways, grade 3 to Persona, 13k base. Unison Dress, auto when placed by riding from a unit of Leonor is different card name from this unit or unit in the Unison Dress state itself. Draw a card, and this unit becomes in the Unison Dress state until end of this fight. Nah. Cool. I feel like that's like the definition of an anime keyword, though. Like, they didn't need to put this on here, because this is the only card with the Unison Dress state so far, and there's only 3 cards in total that even mention that in this text, this being one of them, the other being Atlantis, and the third one being a card that is a vanilla until you get onto Vivace over here. So, it is what it is, though. Anyways, and her other skill is Auto Vanguard, hard once per turn. When this unit in the Unison Dress state attacks while not boosted, stand all of the rear guards, and they boost this unit. So let's just stop there. You can, swing with the rear guards first, then swing with Van, stand all of them, and then boost. And if you're wondering, oh wait, but Vanity, they can't boost if they're like Resonance Dragon. No, but she has you covered with this one line right here. Rear guards without boost can boost too. So before I continue with that skill, this is probably an 18k. I typically have 2 of these on board, so that's 36k flat. And let's just say I have at least one Prosper who probably gave one of those Resonance Dragons a 5k. So yeah, let's just say one of them's a 23k, one of them's an 18. So that's 23 plus 18, that's 41, plus 8k is 49. Let's just say I have a Gracia, so 13, so that's 62 about. And then we have Diantha, so that's another 13, so that's what, 75? 75 plus 13 in total, that's 88. Yeah, that's 88k. The worst part is, too, I have not hit 88k before. I've hit more. I've hit 90s. I've hit 103 once. Yeah, I've not hit 88. I've hit more than 88 consistently. If I did hit 88, it was one time and I don't remember it. Anyways, continuing with the broken-ass skill, if you boosted with 3 or more units with this effect, at the end of that battle, by counterblasting 1, you can choose any 3 units, stand them, and they all get plus 5k and lose a drive until end of turn. So, here's the important part to note about this. It says any 3 units, counting herself. Meaning, granted, she's going to be at a lot weaker power because she'll only be an 18k, unless she Persona Road or added extra power to her. But just again, think about that. 18k, a grand total of triple drive, 2 Vanguard attacks, one of them being almost at 100, if not over 100, and then you have double Resonance Dragons going in, and one of those fuckers is going to restand. For Vivace, she makes numbers. She is the dumbest thing I have ever seen in my entire life, because she is a bordery stand, and granted she doesn't attack with it, thank the gods, and yet for some reason Bar gets to do it, or not Bar, Star of Irina gets to do it, but I mean, makes numbers and multi-attack. Like I said, we went from 3 to 4 to 5 to 7, because fuck 6, I guess. 4 of Lianorn Vivace. Just amazing grade 3, and I cannot, like, describe why they chose that this was the effect they gave it. That part's just so stupid to me, the board restand aspect. And without further ado, I'm guys want to hear. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is fun to play. It gets rear guards out very consistently. Against board nuke decks, it actually thrives a lot well. And it literally just, like, once you get to Vivace, it's like board restand, big ass numbers. Your opponent's going to have one hell of a time trying to stop it. So without further ado, I'm going to this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, just go follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in this one. Don't forget to snap your vanguards.